For over 100 years, the story has been written, ever changing and growing with each new chapter. The soul remains, though the characters change. Bigger, faster, stronger, smarter.
Ready or not, here I come. You can't hide.
So too grows our fandom. Start miles ahead. The 2020 Prospect Encyclopedia. September. Available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and Blitzalytics.com.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Arena here, the Monday before Thanksgiving. I'm your man, Eric Wilson. I have the entire crew with us here tonight. We got a lot to discuss when it comes to Week 11, so we just going to dive right in. But as always, let me show some love first and foremost to the entire crew. And one thing I want to bring to everybody's attention, because today, November 23rd, 2020, marks an historic day in the NFL. For the first time ever in NFL history, the entire officiating crew of the Monday Night Football game between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Los Angeles Rams, who are currently tied at 17 apiece right now, is all African American. First time ever. So I want to show love to Jerome Boger, Barry Anderson, Julian Mapp, Carl Johnson, Dale Shaw, Anthony Jeffries, and Greg Steed. We need to honor these gentlemen for being the first to do something of such significance. Well, let me get the entire crew in here, and you know most of them. I'm going to start off, of course, with our girl, Miss Ruth the Truth, donning her Cowboys Ruth the Truth jersey. Good evening. Alongside Believe in the Pac-12, Mr. Michael Caratanudo. I've got my man, Jake Rongholt, turning both sides of the story with Turning Points Podcast, and my man, the big dog, Florida Sun Review, Jacksonville Jaguars contributor, Mr. Alex Fleming. Good evening to everybody. Thank you so much for being here and joining us tonight on the Sports Arena. I really appreciate it. We got a guest here with us tonight. I would say be nice to him, but I think he can handle all of y'all. I'm not truly worried. It's my brother, Tyrus Ray, from the Say What, Say It Again sports talk show every Tuesday night right here on Facebook, 8:30 p.m. Hey, everybody, much love. Good evening.
Hey.
What's going on?
Let's rock and roll, gentlemen.
How about those Cleveland Browns?
73. I love it.
He's starting
early. Shots fired. Let's start.
I guess it's nice to be in second place finally with a three-way tie, but we're going to get to that a little bit later on here this evening.
Thank
so
you for
I wanted
Vikings.
I know you were happy, Jake. I was like, it was bittersweet for me, but let's get down to business, shall we? I want to start out west because it seems to me like the teams in the West, both the NFC and the AFC, just seem to be putting on clinics week in and week out. And if you ask me right now, I think the Super Bowl is going to be between a division in the NFC West versus the AFC West. But before I even throw that out there, because that's what I'm thinking, I'll give you my prediction a little bit later on. Let me ask this question to start the night off. And very simply this. After what we saw on Sunday Night Football, can we say that the Las Vegas Raiders under John Gruden and Mike Mayock are finally relevant again. Ruth, I'm going to start with you on this one. I got to get your thoughts on this.
All right. Well, the Las Vegas Raiders are sitting at 6-4, second place in the AFC West. Now, they have a tough division, and last night's game really showed what they could really do with their team. I mean, I've always been a fan of John Gruden ever since he won a championship in the Tampa Bay area. Shout out to Martin Gramatica for letting me wear his Super Bowl ring from that year, which was an awesome experience. But yeah, John Gruden has really held things together, and I think that they could really take things far. I mean, this was their second matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs, and it wasn't a bad game. They were playing tough. Defense hung in there. They kept, Patrick Mahomes to a minimum. So I really believe the Las Vegas Raiders are a real deal.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you talk about Mike Mayock, who is a draft genius. He is the one that drafted Clelin Ferrell. Everybody ripped on him. He's actually become a very good football player. And in case you wonder this, they needed him desperately on that rushing attack last night because the Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Le'Veon Bell were doing a great job being able to just go right through that front seven like they were nothing. But you talk about getting guys like Max Crosby, Jonathan Abram, Damian Arnett, and then Derek Carr. Everybody was talking about how this guy was going to be benched by week 8. Wrong again. 19 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and an offensive line to boot that has the likes of Rodney Hudson, and then Trent Brown finally came back. And if Trent Brown is out still, they always have somebody ready at that right tackle spot. You got to love this Raiders team. They're a blast to watch. I mean, they're rebellious, they're fun, and they're just like their coach, John Gruden. Keep in mind, Gruden and Mayock before this point were 11-21. Now it actually feels like it's starting to come together. If they build up this defense, get rid of that defensive coordinator and Paul Gunther for next year, the Raiders could be a definite team to be a threat for the Kansas City Chiefs in the future.
And we did see that last night. Let me get my brothers up in here, Tyrus and my man, of course, Alex Fleming. So, Tyrus, let me go to you. You being a 49ers fan that you are in the West right now, and you're kind of suffering from a Super Bowl hangover, but there's still a shot for you. What did you see last night between these two teams? And then, Alex, when he's done, my question to you, my brother, is when you look at the Las Vegas Raiders and the rest of their schedule, right now, it would be a rematch for the third time wild card weekend if the playoffs were to start today. But let me go to Tyrus first. What were your impressions of last night's game?
Similar to what he just said, everybody kind of bags on Derek Carr. Derek Carr is not a bad quarterback. He went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes last night. If it wasn't for a few key drop passes, I think Aguilar dropped the pass, and I want to say the fullback dropped by 2 passes. One of them he should have most definitely caught. But I mean, Derek Carr went head to head with him, and they look pretty good. I think the defense definitely needs to get better. They got no sacks on Patrick Mahomes. They had pressure on him, but they couldn't get him to the ground. So I think that's something they most definitely need to improve on. And that secondary is kind of suspect too. But I think the Chiefs is still the team to beat out West.
To be fair, I agree with most of what you said, but let's dig a little deeper. Do you remember when Antonio Brown was supposed to go to Oakland? They were missing a number 1. What's the key element that you need in the number 1? A number 1 wide receiver that's going to take the top off of the secondary. Now, stop and think with me for a second. They're a mirror image of the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they just got him because their original running back stood out for COVID. They just acquired Le'Veon Bell. They have Josh Jacobs, a thoroughbred with a lot of tread on the tires from Alabama, a gift from Nick Saban. He controls that backfield. And he's got Devontae Booker to shell him whenever he needs him. Travis Kelce, money, best tight end in football. You know what? I like Darren Waller. If I'm playing fantasy and I can't pick up Kelce, I'm going to try to grab Waller or Andrews because Waller has been balling. They both had touchdowns last night. Tyreek Hill, speed demon. You can't peach Steve. By the way, Henry Ruggs, Alabama? Yeah, 4.27 at the 40. So he could take the top off the defense. Plus with Hunter Renfrow. Now, their original number 1, because Antonio Brown stood out, is now number 2. Tyrell Williams is out. He's not playing this season. So you got Brandon Edwards from South Carolina, Ruggs from Alabama, Hunter Renfrow from Clemson. So they're a young group. Now, you remember the first game, they gave it to him, and it was in Kansas City. You know what I didn't see last night, or I can't remember seeing? Punts. Because they didn't punt that much because the offense was efficient. This was primary, excellent, selective football. You saw filet last night. You didn't see a lot of mistakes, and the only turnover you saw was when Derek Carr got desperate to try to tie up or win the game because they left a minute and 30 on the clock for Kansas City. I've already wrote an article about it. It was about 5-6 weeks ago. It's time to gamble on Vegas. Right now, they would play Buffalo because I believe they're the number 7 seed. It could be a rematch in the second round with the Kansas City Chiefs, but that's only if they're the number 1 seed. They're number 2, thanks to Pittsburgh.
All right, Alex, appreciate that. Let me get my man Mike in here because, Mike, you are out west, brother. And I want for a second, brother, you and I, let's look at this schedule real quick. So the Raiders have the Falcons, Mama Cara Tenuto's Jets, Indianapolis Colts, the Chargers, the Dolphins, and the Broncos. Realistically, Mike, and please be unbiased with me on this, brother, what are your expectations with the Raiders for the rest of this season?
I think the only game, well, you said the Colts, right? You did.
I did say that. Yep.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah. So I think the only game they probably wouldn't be favored in, or it might be pick 'em, basically, would be that Colts game. They should be favored in those. I mean, Denver kind of gave you the blueprint. Miami's banged up yesterday, but they beat up Tua. I liked what the Raiders did, and yeah, to piggyback off Alex's point, I said in the beginning, Mike Mayock pretty much sat down with John Gruden and said, "We're taking Josh Jacobs," and that is the stalwart they have in the backfield. But that schedule lines up beautifully. I mean, you have to play the games. You're going to be that team that I think they are, and taking that step, having already beat Kansas City in Kansas City this year, if they're going to be that team, they can't have a letdown from this game. They're going to have to pick themselves up and move on. Now, with that schedule, they should be able to do it. Again, the Colts, to me, would be the toughest game. Nobody wants to give the Jets their first win, so that should be okay. The Miami game, it'll be interesting. But everything that they've done, and yeah, defensively, I mean, you have to get pressure on a Mahomes and hit him in the face, as we know, if you're able to do it. But he's elusive. Good luck with that. That being said, too, their schedule lines up well, Eric. What Gruden is doing with them. And, I mean, come on. You know I got to give a shot. You know what I was going to. The man that had the go-ahead touchdown, Jason Witten, because you have that veteran leadership in the locker room. Old man Witten with the phenomenal pattern, tap dances, and gets a touchdown. But look, if you're going to get that from he's obviously a benefit for Waller, like Alex was talking about too, because Waller literally became their number 1 last year once Antonio Brown left. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he was getting a lot of the targets. But Derek Carr, what they've done, I mean, again, he did go toe-to-toe with them. The Chiefs are just a little bit better. And if you can't sub on defense, everybody's going up tempo. The Chiefs are just going to destroy anyway, no matter who you are.
Yeah, very true. All right, so we're looking at this team and we're saying based on their schedule, we are predicting that they're going to be a playoff team. Speaking of teams that I think are going to be in the playoffs and I think are going to surprise a lot of people, Mike, you brought them up, probably the toughest matchup yet for the Las Vegas Raiders, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Jake, this is no dig at you, my brother, because I was very much on the Packers side yesterday. Unfortunately, these things happen. It was Frank Reich. It was Indianapolis. So, you know, it was one of those moments where just like Derek Carr trying to do too much, I think your running back did a little too much, which is why the fumble occurred. But are the Colts getting hot at the right time, you guys? And, of course, Miss Ruth, the truth, because think about it like this. We always say as a team gets hot towards the back end of the season, that's the momentum pushing them into the postseason. So I want to start with Tyrus, and then I want to go to Jake because, you know, they did play your team yesterday. But Tyrus, let me ask you, are they getting hot right now? And are they the team that's going to surprise a lot of people in the AFC when it comes to the postseason?
I think so. I think the only teams the only 2 teams I think are for sure that's better than them is the Steelers and the Chiefs. I think anyone else they can most definitely have a dogfight with. Phillip Rivers is starting to get comfortable. The defense has been looking pretty good all season. I know people always rag on Phillip Rivers. You know, they say he's old. I know a lot of guys on my show was saying that might be time for him to retire. But I most definitely think he has a lot left in the tank. I mean, they put up. I mean, I know the Packers defense isn't all that great, but I mean, they did put up 30-something points yesterday on that defense. He threw for 3 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. So I think most definitely, I think the Colts are getting hot at the right time.
Jake, this is your team that they played against yesterday, my brother. So I got to hear from you on this one.
Well, first off, every time the Packers defense was up, I threw a blindfold over my head because I just couldn't watch this defense play. I love watching the Colts defense play. Yeah, they had they gave up 31 points. Of course, it's Aaron Rodgers. Matt LaFleur had a good game plan, but give a lot of credit actually to the best guy out there, and that was Frank Reich. Frank Reich did an amazing job adjusting at halftime, and that's one of the best things about him and his coaching staff. They knew they were down 28-14, and they said, hey, we haven't run the ball yet. Let's get this defense on their toes here. That way we can open it up for Phillip Rivers, get Michael Pittman involved, get Zach Pascal involved, Jack Doyle involved, and that's what happened. They ran the football 4 of their first 5 plays on that drive that set up that touchdown to Michael Pittman to make it 28-21. It was a great game for the Colts to win. They needed this game. It was at home, and if you take a look at their schedule, they have a favorable chance to win their division. The only one that looks like a question mark is playing at Las Vegas and at Pittsburgh. Otherwise, they got Tennessee, at Houston twice, then they got Jacksonville. This is an 11-5, 12-4 team that could be a pain in the side and possibly be that sneaky team that gets into the AFC Championship.
Let me get Ms. Ruth the truth in here, because when you're talking about the Colts, I think the biggest knock on Phillip Rivers was the fact that he couldn't beat Tom Brady in the postseason. Mm-hmm. Well, Tom's not in the AFC anymore. He's over here in the NFC. So is this the moment for Phillip Rivers to truly capitalize and actually, go on and possibly beat the Patrick Mahomes of the world, beat the Big Ben Roethlisbergers of the world, and shock a lot of people?
Right. So when it comes to football, offense wins games, defense wins championships. So if the Indianapolis Colts can keep their defense heavy and stay as hot as they are, they do have a chance to make a run for a Super Bowl. I mean, when I see Phillip Rivers coming to this to the Colts team, I automatically thought of Peyton Manning when he made that move to the Denver Broncos, and then he was able to keep them in the playoffs, keep them strong, and then win a Super Bowl. This is what I'm thinking about when I think of Phillip Rivers, and I think they have the capability of doing it. Their run game is solid. Their offensive line can hold. Phillip Rivers obviously has the football IQ, and like I said before, their defense is hot. So I see this being a really good season for the Indianapolis Colts.
I don't disagree. I like the Indianapolis Colts, but let's look at reality and see what happened. They swept the NFC North. They thoroughly handled the Minnesota Vikings. They beat down the Detroit Lions. Chicago was the only close game, gave them their first L. And with Green Bay, I saw a lot on this game. Defense of Indianapolis was definitely more physical. Darius Leonard, the quarterback on the defense, and Aaron Rodgers have a hug for mutual respect because that defense was on point. They had 2 turnovers, they had an interception, and I believe they made some moves on special teams. You know what worries me about the Indianapolis Colts other than the Tennessee Titans, which they have to play this Sunday? The offensive line. Not for protecting Phillip Rivers, but for protecting Phillip Rivers. When Phillip Rivers isn't throwing interceptions, that's probably because there's an offensive hold. 9 offensive holding calls on the offensive line yesterday against the Green Bay Packers because they couldn't handle the smoke from Preston and Zadarian Smith and Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark. I was actually kind of shocked, but the Green Bay Packers salted this game away. They were up 21-7 at the half. They only scored a total of, I believe, 3 points in the third and fourth quarter because they only had 6 offensive plays until late in the third quarter. Indianapolis, they did what they had to do, down those points, ran the ball down their throat the first possession, then passed it the second possession, and had the field goals with Blankenship. They were clutch. Here's my issue with Indy. Number 1, you got to beat Tennessee because you two have been jockeying for position. We talked about this in the spring. Number 2, I believe Buffalo might actually be better than them, and Pittsburgh has a better defense. Kansas City can outscore them because Phillip Rivers can't handle that smoke.
Good points, Alex. And actually, they were outscored 20-3 in the second half, just something that was brought to my attention. So, Mike, let me go to you, my brother, because the Indianapolis Colts, you and I have kind of talked about Phillip Rivers, and on one hand, we're saying, listen, this brother's old, he needs to move on, but now he seems he's got a fresh start. Do you think that Frank Reich, the combination of Frank Reich and Phillip Rivers, can make a viable run moving forward?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm piggybacking off of you because we talked about this. We said once he moved to Florida and he was a free agent and he wasn't going to be back with the Chargers, we said outside of if you don't know Cam Newton's health, like Phillip Rivers is the best fit for Indianapolis because Frank Reich, again, you go from Andrew Luck, and not that Jacoby Brissett's bad, but at the same time, you look at what Phillip Rivers has done in his career, and Alex said on it, yes, the interceptions are bad. You want to talk about a guy that's going to push the ball down the field, that's going to fire up his team, that's going to have him ready to go. It was a great fit. And plus, Frank Reich makes that a great fit, though, because him being a backup quarterback, I mean, he backed up Jim Kelly. He actually helped one of the biggest comebacks ever in playoff history against the Oilers. So, I mean, that's one of those things where it is a good fit for Phillip Rivers. The turnovers aren't there. Again, that matchup against Vegas, I do think, because I'm in the corner of Buffalo, because out of the Raiders and as much as I do love Indianapolis's defense, like what they were able to do, like Jake said, I mean, against Aaron Rodgers, they knew they had to swipe at the ball, and they did. So, but Buffalo to me has the best defense of those three. So if it gets into like you're shortening the game by running the ball, in which it would be good for Indianapolis to do, but at the same time, Buffalo's defense can do everything that can, and obviously that Vegas can, and I think a little bit better. But to your point with Indianapolis, it's been a great fit for Rivers. Again, he got a little banged up yesterday. It helps having Jacoby Brissett as a backup. That helps Frank Reich as well. So I love what they're doing. And the only thing I'll say, I mean, again, beating Tennessee, yes, they have to beat Tennessee, but that schedule, man, just like the Raiders, you can't overlook that schedule. Just sets them up to just light some people up and go in, and it's a division.
It really does. It really does. And again, let's get everybody here. Mike Caratanua, Root the Truth, Jake Wronghold, Alex Fleming, and my man Tyrus Ray from the Say What, Say It Again sports podcast. Your man Eric Wilson here on the Sports Arena tonight. So speaking of teams, and this is the last team standing. A team that we actually thought might get their first L because everybody saw it maybe as a trap game. Pittsburgh is 10-0 for the first time in franchise history, and looking at their schedule, could potentially be 16-0. I mean, listen, I don't want to hear from whatever his name is, the old Mercury Morris. I don't want to hear from him. I really don't. Because he'll find a way to just interject himself into the conversation if Pittsburgh makes that run. But, Alex, you were at the game yesterday. So I got to get some firsthand knowledge from you based on what you saw with the Pittsburgh Steelers, my brother.
Well, first and foremost, shout out to the Pittsburgh Steelers for having an excellent game, and to the fans because they traveled well, because they took over TIAA Bank. To put it simple, Pittsburgh pillaged Jacksonville. Pick your poison when it comes to the wide receivers. Chase Claypool has 10 touchdowns on the season. He's only played 10 games. Oh, by the way, he's a rookie. Abbotsford, British Columbia. But that's a different story. 4 catches, 59 yards, and a touchdown yesterday. It was Juju's birthday, so they didn't expect much of him because Deontay Johnson was a fool. 12 catches for 111 yards. Mr. Roethlisberger only threw the ball 46 times, 32 of 46 for 267 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. They had to change over to nickel and dime coverage because they were getting beat deep and intermediate routes. Deontay Johnson was getting swagger catches. And once that confidence comes up, it builds the confidence of the rest of the team. Chase Claypool hurt not 1, but 2 corners that were covering him yesterday. And there was no C.J. Henderson, so the Gator was missing. Besides the lack of James Shaughnessy, Laviska Shenault, and C.J. Henderson, players went down with injuries or couldn't keep up with the threat of the wide receivers. That's because the offensive line was allowing the running game. Connor, who struggled the last 3 games against Dallas and Baltimore and Cincinnati, had 94 yards rushing and a catch for 10 yards. They were able to run the football, which led open to the secret weapon, which is Eric Ebron, beating up linebackers in the middle. 4 catches, 36 yards, and a touchdown. He was my key to the game. They play as a complete team. Of all the games they have remaining, because they're going to beat Baltimore on Thursday, I think Buffalo poses the biggest threat because who got Diggs, and that defense is for real. They're not going to give up a fight. Indianapolis isn't a threat because they can't put up points like the Pittsburgh Steelers can. They are calm like a bomb. They're going to be a problem.
Shout out to our man Mookie Hawkins for who got Diggs. So, Jake, looking at this from your standpoint, and you like to tell both sides of the story, the upside is this team has yet to be beat. But the other side is this team has yet to be beat.
And it's going to be interesting to see. I really did like the way Ben Roethlisberger said that they are not on the road to being a 16-0 team. They are chasing the Lombardi, and I really appreciated the way that Roethlisberger handled that question. You got to look at the schedule, though. They got Baltimore coming up. They are desperate for a win. They got at Buffalo coming up. They got to play the Colts, and then they have to go play at a rainy Cleveland at the end of the year. So I'm not going to say that this team is 16-0 yet, but I love this defense. This front seven is the best in football. Bud Dupree, TJ Watt coming off the outside, Cameron Hayward, the anchor inside that defense. One thing I'm very impressed with yesterday, that secondary needed a game to really 4 turnovers, 4 interceptions on Jake Luton. That's what you need, especially when you're about to go into a desperate Baltimore team on Thanksgiving night, and then you got to play Buffalo. You got to play Cleveland still. But I really appreciate the way that Mike Tomlin is coaching up this team, and Kevin Colbert, how he's built up this team. Also, shout out to Kevin Colbert, because he went and got Chase Claypool in the 2nd round, and every draft analyst in America said that this was a reach for them. How you feeling today there?
Listen, I got to get Ruth and I got to get Mike in here, because since the 3 of us are in the worst division in the NFL, I mean, what's it like to hear a coach like Mike Tomlin say, we're not overlooking anybody and we're playing and we're not just going to simply rely on our offense or our defense. This is about winning. Let me ask both of you, because both of you are Dallas fans. I mean, I'm ready to jump ship and go play for Mike Tomlin. I don't know about the 2 of you, but when you hear this man talk, and you've got a guy in Ben Roethlisberger who just a few years ago didn't even know if he wanted to play. He was contemplating retirement. To come back and have a game like he had yesterday and this team be 10-0, what does that say to both of you about just the resurgence of this team this year?
They deserve a Lombardi trophy. I mean, they're 10-0, and it's obvious that they want – I mean, everybody wants to have an undefeated season. I know it looks pretty, but that's not something that's on their game plan. They have bigger fish to fry. I mean – like I said, I think the Baltimore game is probably the only mishap that I think could happen. Maybe Buffalo, but Steelers defense is going to take them to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't look. My disdain for the Steelers, obviously being a Cowboys fan, I give them their respect. But that being said, Ruth, look, Mike Tomlin almost looking into the playoffs last year, and I'm with Eric on that. They don't overlook anybody. That's why it actually kind of gives the Cowboys at least a little bit of credit defensively, because with, a practice squad quarterback, they had him on the ropes. So, I mean, the Steelers aren't going to overlook anybody because Mike Tomlin won't let them. So that being said, I do think Buffalo can trip them up. I just don't think that, I mean, again, and it's not just because of last night, it's the whole season. Like, Kansas City can do everything to answer. I mean, to Alex's point too, you think about the defense, Minkah Fitzpatrick, that trade was ridiculous. It's unfair that the Steelers end up with him for pretty much peanuts and filling up pot machines or whatever. That being said, though, that was huge for them. Yes, their front 7 is solid. They will always play defense, but they're not better than the Chiefs. And I do think Buffalo can punch them in the mouth enough to trip them up. That's the thing. But if they do go, look, everybody says, oh, it's good for a team to lose in the regular season. Look, I mean, outside of that last drive by the Giants, the Patriots were right there too. And I know Eric Mercury Morris got to celebrate. That made you very upset. But that being said, like, can they get there? Yes. But I just think that, look, if Stephon Diggs is playing the way that he's capable of, and we know Josh Allen can, look, he can match Roethlisberger. He can make any single throw you want him to. We know that with the arm he has. But I will say defensively, yes, it can get them there, but I still won't say that they're better than Chiefs, because I think the Chiefs can answer everything the Steelers do on offense. And that is the one team that can answer them. Look, can the Steelers beat them? Sure. If it's in Pittsburgh, sure. But, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is that X factor. Yes, Roethlisberger's been playing great, should be in the MVP conversation, although I think Derrick Henry has now taken it over, in my opinion, but that's just me. But your point to the Steelers, Eric, like, They can go 16-0. I think Buffalo could trip them up. And who knows with Cleveland, because Cleveland got we know lambasted by them last time. And with the 2 running backs back, if you control the clock, yes, you have to score, but you
Good point.
keep that
Good
offense
point.
off the field. So
You're right. You're right. Let me get Jake in here real quick, and then I'm going to give Alex the final word. We're going to take a quick 30-second break. So, Jake, I want to get you in here on this one, brother. Give me your thoughts on what Mike just said.
I think he's dead on about it. I don't think that this Pittsburgh team is as good as their record. They have won ugly. And you've heard it from Mike Tomlin. You've heard it from Ben Roethlisberger. How many times am I going to see the camera show Brian Roethlisberger going, oh, we won? He's done it 3 times this year. So understand this. Buffalo, Indianapolis, and Cleveland, those are the 3 games to me where I feel like they're going to get their first loss. But if they get this loss to Baltimore, then the whole thing just changed here and going forward. But like I said, I like the way this team is coached up, and I think Ben Roethlisberger saying they're chasing a Lombardi is far better than saying going 16-0.
Alex, I'm going to give you the final word on this, my brother.
I want to remember almost 2 years ago when people were asking for Mike Tomlin's job. The man hasn't been under 500 ever. He took over that job more than 14 years ago. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. He won one of them. He was 8-8 without Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger. How do you like him now? Last week, as a matter of fact, they beat down the Cincinnati Bengals, and they didn't even have a running game. Yesterday, Jake Luton, 151 yards, 4 interceptions. Deontay Johnson had more receptions than he had completions. James Robinson tried to do his thing, but he only had 73 yards. 2 picks went to Tremaine Edmonds, who I believe as a secondary player doesn't have very good hands, and 2 from Minkah Fitzpatrick, a steal they got from the Miami Dolphins. Chase Claypool, 10 touchdowns. Deontay Johnson, I believe 4 touchdowns. Juju Smith-Schuster, 5 touchdowns. Don't forget about James Washington, 20 receptions, and I believe he has 3 touchdowns. There's a reason why Big Ben Roethlisberger has 20 of his 24 touchdowns to the wide receiver core. Oh, and Ebron's got a couple as well. Guys, Cleveland's not ready for that defense in the pass rush. I don't see Indianapolis keeping up with them when it comes to points. Buffalo, yes, I admit, I want to see that smoke, but they beat up on the NFC East, which was not hard to do. They beat up on a couple of teams that we thought were going to play them tough. They won't have to play Kansas City until they meet into the playoffs. So as far as I'm concerned, unless it's Buffalo, they can go undefeated into the playoffs with that number 1 seed, which we know is so key because number 2 has been screwed because you don't get a bye week now.
Yeah, very true. And I was looking at the playoff seedings earlier before we came here tonight on the Sports Arena. And as it's set right now, Pittsburgh, of course, is number 1. But that number 2 and number 7 seed is Kansas City versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Buffalo at 3 would face Cleveland. And then the Colts and the Tennessee Titans would be the 4 and 5. We're going to take a 30-second quick break. But before we do that, I want to ask you all, because I'm going to give each of you a minute to answer this question when we come back. We're going to do a bit of a carousel type segment here. Since we do have a 3-way tie in the NFC East for second place, I got to know from each one of the 5 of you, which team is going to step up and challenge Philadelphia for that number 1 spot. You got 30 seconds to think about it. We're going to come back here on the Sports Arena. Be right back. Welcome back into the Sports Arena. Your man, Eric Wilson, alongside Ruth the Truth, Mike Caratuno, Jake Wronghold, Alex Fleming, and our special guest from the Say What, Say It Again sports talk show every Tuesday night on Facebook at 8:30, Mr. Tyrus Ray. So here's the question, just again, so that y'all know what it is. 3-way tie in the NFC East for second place. You've got Dallas, the Giants, and the Washington football team all at 3 and 7. Philly sitting at 3, 6 and 1. Which team is going to step up and challenge Philadelphia? I'm going to give each of you a minute. Tyrus, since you're our guest, you're going first, sir.
I never thought I would say this in my life, but I have to go with the Washington football team. And the main reason why is I like their defense. Alex Smith is starting to look better and better every week. But as I look at their schedule, aside from they have the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, I think they'll beat the Cowboys. They'll play the Steelers. We know how that'll go. The Steelers will lose. They play my 49ers. We're banged up. They'll probably beat us. They play Seahawks. They'll probably lose. I think they could beat the Panthers and the Eagles. So I think out of their last 6 games, they'll probably take 2 losses. So I think Washington has a very favorable schedule, and I think they're starting to get hot at the right time. So I hate to say it, man. As much as I don't like the football team, to me, my money's on them.
All right, Miss Ruth the Truth, I'm going to go next to you, my dear.
All right, so I'm not coming at you as a Dallas Cowboys fan, even though that's obvious. I'm coming at you for an NFL fan overall. I think the Dallas Cowboys has the best opportunity to take the division from the Philadelphia Eagles. I know the Eagles are sitting at 3-6-1. I mean, they have an ugly tie behind them. But the Dallas Cowboys, after seeing yesterday's match with Andy Dalton finally coming back from COVID reserve and the concussion that he had during that Washington game, I just see them, they're taking off. I've seen them building momentum. Our defense is finally getting involved in these games. And obviously, Andy Dalton, all he has to do is take care of the ball and get the ball to the weapons. And I think that he's going to continue to do that. And Mike McCarthy is obviously getting a better game plan with his offensive coordinator and with Mike Nolan on the defensive side of the ball. They're obviously communicating and just getting a lot of reps in during practice. So I think the Dallas Cowboys has the best chance to win the division.
Mike, I'm gonna let you piggyback off your girl, Miss Ruth the Truth, there, and go ahead.
I know you're
brother.
on my side, Mike.
Go ahead, Mike. Who's the best team, Mike?
Tyrus, you hurt my feelings when you picked Washington. No,
Lost your damn mind.
That being said, look, Philly's schedule is brutal. And again, Carson Wentz shouldn't be benched. And Eric, I'm not saying that as like, oh, he should stay in there so they lose. No, if they bench him, they're going to lose big. They're going to lose a lot more. That being said, like I said, the Giants have played the hardest for Joe Judge, but I'm a little bit with Ruth, and it's not an overreaction because the defense actually played better. The secondary was still Chidobe Awuzie looked better yesterday coming off of injury, looked a little bit better. But if they start getting pressure up front like they were for Rod Marinelli last year, they can definitely do it. The Ravens game, which I thought was going to be crazy tough, the Ravens can't hold a lead or score points. The Cowboys get pressure. I think they can do it. Alex Smith does worry me because right now he is the best quarterback in the division. He's playing that way. So Alex Smith does worry me, but I will say I am going to go.
Okay, Mike, I told you it's a minute, bro. You keep going. It's a minute, Mike. I had to cut you off.
1 minute.
It's a minute.
I tell you.
A minute, Alex. Go ahead. Here's your minute, Alex. Go ahead. Tell me.
I actually agree with Tyrus. I believe it's the Washington football team.
Oh,
Hear me out. They already laid a dead body when they laid out Carson Wentz 8 times for week 1. They already had that smoke and gave that smoke to Dallas, whose defense is Swiss cheese. Oh, and by the way, Chase Young and Montez Sweat need to start a cologne company. Maybe Young Sweat or Predator Heat, because you can smell them coming. There were 4 sacks yesterday on the Cincinnati Bengals. Sweat had a sack. Kerrigan had a sack. Tim Settle had a sack. And then Moreland and Smith-Williams split a sack. As a matter of fact, they had a sack each and every game. Now, Alex Smith isn't going to impress you, but out of all the quarterbacks left in the NFC least, I trust him the most. And he's teaching young Simba how to take over the reins for this team because Alex Smith's time is running out. I love the Swiss Army knife in Antonio Gibson, 94 yards rushing and a reception for 10 yards. He's the factor back that makes the difference. And other than New York, they can take out Dallas and they can take out Philly. I like Washington.
I almost wanted to mute you so bad, but I have to respect this because I'm the one that asked the question. Jake, you got the last word. Actually, no, I'm going to get the last word, but Jake, I'm going to let you go. You're 1 minute. Which team?
All right.
Come on, Jake.
Fans, relax. You gave up 28 points to the Minnesota Vikings and the 28th best defense in the NFL with the Vikings. I mean, calm down here. And not to mention, how was Adam Thielen yesterday? Oh, right. 2 touchdown catches. By the way, your secondary still doesn't know how to play man-to-man, and you're ranked 29th in the NFL overall in defense. I'm going with the Washington football team because I believe Ron Rivera is a far better coach than Mike McCarthy is because he has this team playing hard. It doesn't matter who you are on this team. This team is going to play hard for Ron Rivera, and they are clearly showing it. They also have the best pass defense in the NFL. 9 interceptions. They're 8th in the league in that. Their front 7 is getting a lot better. They've been able to get over the injury bug a little bit. And then we all forget about, and I love how Alex brought up Antonio Gibson. We're forgetting about the most underrated receiver, Terry McLaurin. 62 receptions, 871 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Don't fall asleep on Washington. They're coming for you.
Oh, let me
All
lose
right.
on Thursday.
We'll see. We face them next week. We'll
Thank you,
see.
Jay.
Yeah, you face them on Thursday, short week. But here we
Thursday.
go. Since this is my team, and my team currently is 3-6-1 in first place, here's my minute to talk to all 5 of y'all.
Oh,
You know the
Lord.
one team that I actually think might actually get it done? It's the team that none of you mentioned. It's the New York Football Giants. Why? Because here's my fact of the matter. The New York football team might hit the nail on the head. This team, without their number one guy, Saquon Barkley, is playing for this coach. What does that mean? That means guys like Golden Tate and Sterling Shepard, and lo and behold, probably the fastest running back in the entire division, Danny Dimes, is making headway. That is why I say if there is ever going to be a team that is possibly going to step up and surprise a lot of people, it is simply going to be the New York Football Giants.
I like it. I like it.
I was
Joe
very
Judge has
surprised
been
by
great.
this. So I want to bring Alex and Mike to the screen real quick. Tyrus, Ruth, Jake, I need y'all to give us a minute here. So if y'all will excuse us for 1 minute. So Friday, we had a conversation, the three of us, in regards to one Mr. Taysom Hill, because word came down that he would be starting for the New Orleans Saints. So, Alex, Mike, I need to get your guys' reaction. What did you think of the Taysom Hill debut? A 30-year-old quarterback getting his first official start against an NFC South divisional opponent. Alex, I'm going to let you go first on this one, brother.
First and foremost, I owe Taysom Hill an apology. I thought he was just a gadget player, but lo and behold, he wasn't bad. He wasn't good. He was erratic in the pocket, and he had to settle down after the first half. He had 248 yards passing, and he stole not one but 2 carries from Alvin Kamara because he had 2 rushing touchdowns. He was okay. He did what he needed to do and found his bread and butter in Michael Thomas, 9 catches, 104 yards. So Taysom was erratic, but he started to figure it out. He gives them a different dimension. But guys, let's look at the bigger picture of the New Orleans Saints. If that defense plays like that for the rest of the season, I can't see anybody beating them, especially in the NFC. They're already the number 1 seed because Green Bay flopped yesterday against the Indianapolis Colts. They're dangerous. And let's keep in mind, Drew won't be back because he's on IR. That's at least 6 to 8 weeks. But when he gets back, they have 3 capable of quarterbacks. Taysom Hill is your slasher. Jameis Winston can throw deep, and he's consistent in the pocket. He hasn't thrown a pick, and he took over already for San Francisco. Plus, when Drew gets back, Old Man River with some bad ribs, he has veteran experience. So if you have to run into Tampa again, or you have to get into shootout with Seattle like they did last year, they're ready for all of that. The defense is going to be the key. Taysom Hill is going to keep their ship afloat. Oh, and one last thing. Atlanta, Denver, Philly, Atlanta. I don't see them losing any games soon.
Mike, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I want to not so much apologize because I said if Sean Payton's saying it, I want to apologize to Sean Payton though, due to the fact that when I first said, I'm like, oh, he's just creating a smoke screen. Like Winston's going to start. Look, he's an NFL head football coach, a quarterback whisperer. People are saying whatever, and he is a hell of an offensive coordinator. That being said, like he knew what he had in Taysom Hill. He wanted this kid, and yes, Jameis Winston hasn't been in the offense as long. Those are the obvious things that kind of overlook. So they're obvious, but we were thinking, oh, come on, how do you not start Jameis, especially against Atlanta? So Taysom Hill, I'll go a little bit above Alex. I will say he was good. Yes, he was erratic at times. And that ball must have slipped out of his hand. I don't know if he was like Brucey in The Longest Yard where he had some popcorn between series, because that pop-up that was caught, that was insane. I'm like, there's no way an NFL quarterback's throwing a ball like that. That being said, though, he's able to run the ball. Obviously, it gives that dimension to the offense. Kamara, I think he ran a little more because with the foot, Kamara looked good, but I think Sean Payton wanted him out on the field, but almost like more of a decoy, Eric, in a way. But he hooks up with Michael Thomas. He was comfortable in the offense. Yes, he does need to slide, get out of bounds, but after the first time he did it, he was lowering his shoulder because that's what he does. So you worry about that. I will say overall, I would give him like I guess NFL wise, a C+ performance for his first game as a
Oh, wait,
starter.
hold on, Mike. You just said the brother was. Alex said he was not bad, but he wasn't good.
I said he was good.
You said he was good, but you're only giving him a C+. I mean, if you give it, I mean, that's at least a B-. I mean, come on. He won the game.
All right,
he did his business. So I'm just saying.
Wait, the defense, no, he did. But to Alex's point too, and that's what I was going to say, a C+ because the defense was an extreme A+. I mean, Matt Ryan, say what you will, but there are times he looked flustered. Yes, the offensive line didn't give him enough time, but there was a few times that he held the ball for too long, and I'll admit that. But that defense was lights out. So again, they created a lot of opportunities, so he didn't have to be that. I'm going to say the erraticness in the first half. That's what makes it.
But that's just nerves. It's your first NFL. Let me get everybody else in here. That's your first NFL debut. You're going to have nerves the first half of the game. You've only been a gadget player. So now you're coming in and you are the guy, okay? This isn't one of those things where every 7th or 10th or 12th play, you come in as a gadget player. You are.
He said it was less pressure to start than be a gadget player.
You're going from start to finish. So that elevates your sense of awareness of what you have to do. There is no, you're going to be a tight end here. You're going to be a running back here. You're going to be a scat back here. No, sir. You are the guy. You are the quarterback. Alex, I see you and I got you in just a minute. But that's my point. When you say he is good, but you're only giving him a C+, I'm sorry. I was the guy who told both you and Alex, I said, listen, let me see the snaps. Because you guys both thought that this might be some kind of trickeration by the puppet master that is Sean Payton. Jameis Winston did not sniff the field. So from where I stand, Taysom Hill came in, did what he was supposed to do, and let the defense be the outstanding defense with the Jenkins brothers to get that W, albeit against an Atlanta team that was not Atlanta who we know them to be. Go ahead, Alex. I'm going to give you the final word, and then we are going to move on.
I just want to emphasize what the New Orleans Saints did to Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan had 150 yards passing, 2 interceptions, was sacked 8 times, and the team only scored 3 points. Now, anytime I could use a 28-3 reference to remind people of the blunder they had in the Super Bowl, I'm going to. 150 yards, 2 interceptions, sacked 8 times, and scored 3 points. The New Orleans Saints run the NFC South. Deal with it. And with that defense playing like that, it doesn't matter whether it's Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, or Old Man Breeze. They're the number 1 seed in the NFC.
All right, fair enough. Your man Eric Wilson here on the Sports Arena with the entire crew. Believe in the Pac-12 podcast, Mr. Michael Caratanudo, Tyrus Ray, say it again, Sports Arena, sports talk show, every Tuesday night. Miss Ruth the Truth. This girl's on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I don't think she ever gets any sleep. Of course, Jake Rongholt telling both sides of the story. And my brother, the true workhorse, man, Jacksonville writer, Jacksonville Jaguars contributor. This brother is all over the place. Mr. Alex Fleming, I got 2 more questions for y'all here tonight. Jake, what's up, brother? Oh, you just pointing up to Alex. Wait, the Brady Bunch here. I got this. So, the number 1 draft pick, unfortunately, is out for the season, Joe Burrow. So my question to all of you, and Tyrus, I want to start with you, sir, again on this one. Joe Burrow being finished before the end of his rookie season, did Cincinnati make a mistake? Should they have kept Andy Dalton?
I mean, hindsight is 20/20. So, of course, we're going to say they should have kept him. I think they did the right thing. I mean, you turned it over to Joe Burrow. You wanted to give it to him and not be worried about him having to look over his shoulder and them having complete confidence in him. So I think they did the right thing. I mean, who could predict that he would get hurt and tear his ACL? This year has just been a crazy year with injuries, especially knee injuries due to I think a lot of guys just wanting the amount of shape that they normally would be in due to COVID and due to a lot of other things.
All right. So, Ruth, I'm going to go to you. This was a guy who everybody had high expectations. Hell, Alex met him at the combine, and, granted, he didn't get a chance to talk to him because the brother had a cigar in his mouth. But when you're the number 1 overall pick, there's a level of expectation. And for him to go down, at FedEx Field, what does this mean for Cincinnati? And what does this mean for him as a starting quarterback moving forward?
So Joe Burrow, after week 6, I had Joe Burrow as, my number 1 pick for rookie offensive player of the year. And it's disappointing that he went down the way that he did, but I kind of saw it coming. I mean, the way that the Cincinnati offensive line was not protecting, he was hitting the ground way too much, and that was keeping me worried. But when it comes to whether or not they should have kept Andy Dalton, I mean, they gave the man 9 seasons. He didn't give him a playoff win. He didn't produce, so they cut ties. I don't really think that they're regretting it at this point. I just think that maybe they should have spent some time looking for a better backup for Joe Burrow, because I mean, these injuries are so unpredictable. But the way the season's been going and the way that we've been missing so many quarterbacks in action, it would have been a better idea for them to get somebody stronger. Because when they put Ryan Finley in, it was just an automatic drop off from when Joe Burrow was in there. Like the difference between those quarterbacks is just astronomical. So I think it's unfortunate that Cincinnati had to go out this way, but better luck next year. We'll see Joe come back.
Jake, give me your thoughts, brother. You like to tell both sides of the story, so let me hear from you.
The other side of the story is that the Cincinnati Bengals can't afford Andy Dalton. That's exactly why the Cowboys got him for a year and $3 million, but he was going to make up to $7 million with Dallas. They knew that the writing was on the wall. Andy Dalton was out of Cincinnati. This is the cheapest franchise in the NFL. I mean, we're talking about a team that didn't even decide to re-sign the likes of Dre Kirkpatrick, for example. Couldn't keep Carlos Dunlap, so they sent him off to Seattle. I was not surprised that they decided to, cut loose with Dalton and draft Joe Burrow. But it's kind of a saddening story because, unfortunately, it felt like this was inevitable. It's not because of the Cincinnati Bengals. It's because of the amount of times he just got hit over and over and over again. It was like watching David Carr back in 2002 with the Houston Texans. It's just saddening to see that he has a similar injury to what Alex Smith had just about a year ago. And, I mean, we saw how long it took him, 18 surgeries to get back, and I just wonder what it's going to mean for Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I know. And I said this yesterday after watching him go down. I said, I think that the Washington football team needs to move to a different field. There's something about that field where injuries of that nature seem to take place. You take it all the way back to Joe Theismann, Alex Smith, and now Joe Burrow. I think they need to move away from that stadium, or somebody spray some sage in there or something, because those injuries are they're just horrible to watch. I'm thankful that they did not replay it. It was horrible.
So it was a torn ACL.
Go ahead, Ruth.
It was a torn ACL, MCL, and the meniscus, right?
Torn ACL, torn MCL, same as Alex Smith.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so there was meniscus damage.
There was?
I mean, there's initial reports, but who knows?
Great.
I got one last thing I want to ask all of y'all here this evening on the Sports Arena, and thank you all for joining me here tonight. So there's a team in the AFC South that I think is, dare I say, the new Patriots. Let me ask y'all this question. The Tennessee Titans, are they the new Patriots? This is a team that they are finding ways to win. They are remaining relevant. And we've touched on them here throughout the night here on the Sports Arena, as how they can be a force moving forward. So I want to give each of you time to just kind of marinate on that. But Alex, I'm going to start with you. Are the Titans the new Patriots?
Well, let's break it down. The linebacker, Mike Vrabel, used to play for the New England Patriots. Tough, hard-nosed, get in your face, has no reason to lie to you. Everybody thought that smoke was going to get brought last year in the playoffs against the Baltimore Ravens. And what happened? King Henry came through and shut all that down. Bend but don't break defense. Defense won't surprise you, but the offense is crafty. Derrick Henry, 1,500 yards last year, 109 yards against the Baltimore Ravens, and they're starting to build a rivalry. Tannehill, he did a little bit of running and passing, 259 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception, but 35 yards rushing. So he's rushing for first downs. They're methodical, and they have the type of offense to go up-tempo and beat you. You already know they got a mercenary in Isaiah Wynn at the tackle position. Now, they're missing Taylor Lewan, but they still implement the run game to go down your throat, and the defense is bend but don't break. I would have wished they would have kept Logan Ryan, but that's a different story. They do what they have to do to beat you on any type of format, whether it's on offense or defense. And Tannehill's not going to make a lot of mistakes. Sound familiar? New England, up-tempo, run the football, control the line of scrimmage, defense, opportunistic. And I like Vrabel. I think out of the entire coaching tree, I like Flores and I like Vrabel. Tennessee's the New England South.
All right, Tyrus, what's your thoughts on that, my brother?
I don't think I could go as far as to say they're the New England. I mean, that's I mean, what they win 5 Super Bowls. I mean, that's kind of tough. I think they're a good football team, though. I most definitely do. Their defense, like you said, Bimba, don't break. Derrick Henry, man, whew, he got to be the best running back in the league. I've been saying that for 2 years straight. I mean, maybe they can get him some more Ryan Tannehill, some more weapons. I definitely would like to see him perform this way in the playoffs, because last year he seemed to kind of a little shaky in the playoffs. But I mean, I don't think they're the Patriots, though. I can't say that yet.
And actually, my brother, not 5, but they got 6.
6, my fault. Okay,
they got
6.
6 rings. Jake, go ahead, my brother. What's your thoughts on this?
There are similarities to it. I mean, they got John Robinson. He used to be part of the Patriots front office. I get that. They have a lot of duplicates with A.J. Brown and Jonnu Smith. But no, they're not the Patriots. They're actually becoming an entity of that might be better than the Patriots in the future. But they got to get to the Super Bowl here before we even start mentioning the word Patriots and Titans in the same sentence. I mean, they're 27th in defense. Ryan Tannehill got $116 million contract. He's actually been doing a good job, just enough, but he's not been able to play 4 quarters of football yet. Even though they won yesterday, that was all because of Derrick Henry. He came to life in the second half. And then A.J. Brown with that Herculean effort to get into the end zone was amazing. He continues to be an incredibly talented wide receiver that no one talks about. Corey Davis steps up, Jonnu Smith as well. And then the most substance over style pick that they did was they got Roger Saffold from the Rams, and he has been a blessing in disguise on that offensive line because he's been the reason that this offensive line has been able to stay alive, even though Taylor Lewan is out. And Ty Sombrero, he also left, but they show they are building depth in a substance over style way. They're not the Patriots, but they're getting close.
Mike, what are your thoughts, brother?
Well, I'd say that, again, I think you do have to talk about playoff success and Super Bowls. But I will say, to Alex's point with Mike Vrabel, yeah, I mean, he people didn't think he deserved that coaching job, and he's done nothing but improve that team every year, and he did it physical. He did it with the physical style. I will say this: their receivers, though, that they have right now, I mean, between Davis and Brown, like those dudes are huge, and those are probably they could match up. I mean, if you're going to compare our time through the Patriots with receivers, but man, that is sick when you have receivers that are that big and that physical, and that when they get contacted, they're literally still running, not as much, but like Derrick Henry. I mean, it's just if you can build it defensively and have a quarterback, like you said, that's not going to make mistakes, not turn over the ball. It's one of those things where they can become it, but I mean, yeah, you want to see more in the playoffs. I mean, they did get to the championship game, and yes, they fell short against the eventual champs. But man, I mean, everything Mike Vrabel's done, and if that line, like you say, you get Taylor Lewan back, you get the nastiness to that offensive line back.
True.
Like you can't. Not one person's tackling Derrick Henry, and when you play defense like that, man, I mean, again, they're getting there. But again, they win a Super Bowl or two. I mean. And they start in that area, they definitely will be, yeah.
Ruth, I'm going to give you the last word, then we're going to close it out here tonight, my dear. What are your thoughts?
So just one quick thought. When you're talking about the New England Patriots, you're thinking about longevity. So the Titans are on their way, as everybody has, alluded to. I mean, they have great offensive weapons. Their defense stepping up. Derrick Henry is the best in the game right now. But are they there yet? No, but they're definitely on their way.
All right, fair enough. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here with me tonight here on the Sports Arena. I want to say thank you to everybody. Tyrus, make sure y'all check him out tomorrow, him and his crew. They have such a great time on the Say What, Say It Again sports talk show, 8:30 on Facebook Live. Michael Caratanudo, Believe in the Pac-12 podcast, dropping new stuff each and every week. Jake Rongholt, telling both sides of the story with Turning Point podcast. I appreciate you having me on the show last week, brother. Love that. Our girl, Miss Ruth the Truth, co-host of the Martine Gramatica Show. She's got her own show, Beauty in the Cleats, every Wednesday night. Tom Gronkowski show. She is all over the place. And then last but not least, my big dog, Alex Fleming, Florida Sun Review, Fantasy and Flavors, host of the Carousel, Jacksonville Jaguars contributor. This has been a great night, everybody. Everyone have a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the game on Sunday. I'm going for the Washington football team. Love y'all. Sports Arena. We're out.
Right.